Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Novel Knits. My name is Dehnel and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about what I'm knitting and what I'm reading. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad you're here. If you're new, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. And especially if you're returning after watching my last episode, thank you. That was not my best work. I think that I was very stressed out and you could tell. What happened was I recorded that episode before I went on my trip, intending to upload it, and then I ran out of time and I wasn't able to, but I really didn't knit very much on my trip to Tennessee, so I just uploaded it afterwards. And I really thought I would be back quickly. And if this summer has taught me anything, it's that I am not good at follow through on this channel, and I am going to try to be better at that. So my apologies. It's been another like 3 weeks, but I'm back. I'm here. I'm recording, and I'm really excited to chat with you guys today. My knitting mojo has returned, and I'm very excited. I mean, it wasn't really gone for very long. I think it was just dormant in the stress heat ball that I was in the middle of the summer. It was very hot and I had a lot of stress, but things are getting better. We're nearing the end of the summer. Kids are going to be going back to school soon, and that will bring its own kind of normality back into our lives. Like, I'm ready for like Friday nights where we're just in our sweats inside and I can knit again. That's what I'm waiting for. We've had a very, very social summer, which I try not to complain about, but you know how us introverts can be when social engagements are encroaching on our knitting time and our like time to recharge. That's what I've been struggling with, but I'm there, I'm back, things are better. Really quick, if you want to hang out outside of this channel, I'm on Ravelry and Instagram as Novel Knit Girl in both places. I also have a group in Ravelry where I'm hosting a new a make-along. It's called Scraps, Minis, and More. I'll have more information about that below this video. Basically, it's knitting, crocheting, use 3 or more yarns. It's participatory only, so you can work on your long-term blanket projects or a small scrappy project, really whatever you want to do. Sweaters are welcome. Anything is welcome as long as it uses 3 or more yarns or feels scrappy to you. So those are basically the way I run my make-alongs. This one is going until October 31st, and the grand prize, there's going to be 2 grand prizes. One is going to be an advent that I put together. It's just going to be me using scraps and minis around my house that I put into a little advent for somebody. And the other grand prize is going to be actually an advent I have here that's a few years old from Yarn Ink. That's just spectacular, and I will try to show it maybe next time. I'm also this episode pulling the names of 2 winners for pattern prizes, just people who've already been posting in the group on Ravelry or with the hashtag NK Scraps Minis and More on Instagram. So I will list those names on the screen here, and you are a winner. So if your name is on the screen right now, contact me through Instagram or Ravelry and let me know what pattern you would like me to gift you. So as long as it's a giftable pattern, I would love to gift that to you. So congratulations and thanks for coming along this far. It's not too late. Please feel free to join us if you want. It's been a lot of fun seeing what people have been making with their scraps and their minis and just yarn that they have around the house. Okay, so we went to Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We stayed in the Great Smoky Mountains. We were there because our son Milo, he is 12, and if any of you know about baseball, 12U is a big travel year. So some teams go to Cooperstown. Our team did not want to go to Cooperstown for a variety of reasons, but mainly because we just wanted to go with our kids, stay with our kids, and have a different kind of experience. So we went to the Cal Ripken experience in Pigeon Forge, and it was amazing. Our team stayed in 3 cabins. It was 4 families per cabin. Our cabin kind of made it happen so that we could be together. We liked each other going into it, and we like each other still. So it was a good mix of families, and we had the best time. We were staying in the mountains. We went on a mountain coaster. We went tubing. Of course, we were at the baseball field all the time. It was very, very hot. Milo also hit his very first home run ever. If you know 12-year-old boys. They come in a variety of sizes. Some of them shoot up early, some of them are later to shoot up. Milo is on the later to shoot up side. He is still quite small for his age. So for him to get an in the park home run in like 95-degree weather was pretty phenomenal, and we were really excited. It was definitely my highlight as his mom, and I think one of his highlights too. So it was a great experience. I did not knit as much as I thought I was going to. I think I read 6 projects and I only knit on the car ride down on 1 project. So I will talk about that one in works in progress. Basically, it was really flippin' hot the whole time we were there. And yeah, I was hot, sticky, and drinking constantly. So I just didn't do a lot of knitting. It's the kind of trip it was. We had a great time. Nathan, my husband, and I also did have finally our anniversary, and we've been married a long time, and it is the one thing that I think makes me feel old. So we have now been married for 20 years, and yeah, that's having a 15-year-old doesn't make me feel old, but that number makes me feel old. So in a few years, we'll have been together half my life, which is strange. So yeah. All right, well, I think I'm ready to get to the yarny stuff. That's not bad. I thought I was going to talk longer here. But yeah, so I have 2 finished objects today. I have a lot of works in progress, and I have a nice little book club. I've been reading some great books lately, but I'll try to remember to tell you when I'm leading into book club in case you don't want to listen. I know my last book club was quite rambly, and as I was doing my very, very small edits, I thought maybe I should edit some of it out, but then I just couldn't be bothered last time. But they're not normally that long and rambly. I think I just had a moment. I hope. So anyway, my first finished object is the Tits Up Socks by Nancy Wheeler. These are for my mom. I had made these for my mom for Mother's Day, but I gave her 1.5 socks. So I finished them finally, and I couldn't be happier with these. This is an awesome pattern, another great pattern by Nancy. I think this is the 3rd Nancy Wheeler pattern that I finished, 3rd or 4th. So these have these great columns on either side. Tits Up is a quote from The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which I was going to start watching on Amazon Prime because I keep hearing wonderful things about it, but I'm not seeing season 1 for free. So I'm going to look into that some more because I would like to watch it. I followed the instructions exactly. So I have the heel flap and gusset, and then the only place I think I don't follow is on the toe, and I'm not really happy with the toes on these, so I might try Nancy, whatever she says for her toes for the next time that I make these. The yarn I used is Ravolution yarn, and the colorway is Winter Solstice. So this was a sock set. So this was a mini, and this was a mini. I do have 2 of them. They are slightly, so they are slightly off lengthwise. But when I do pattern socks, I count the patterns as I go down. Like, so I was counting the cables. So I think it's just a matter of one of them's been tried on more than the other one. I don't ever block socks, even when I'm giving them away. So I bet if I block these out, they would match just fine. But my mom loves them. I love them. This yarn is so soft, and it's just really, really beautiful. Even this brown, it's like when I was knitting this heel, I was like, that is so pretty. It's just everything about it is wonderful. So now that I've shown these on here, my mom will get her socks, and yeah, I'm really happy with that. It was a great pattern, a lot of fun to do. I did have to use a cable needle for, I think, the right crosses, but not the left crosses. For my mom, I make 72 stitches, and I make all my socks magic loop on a US size 2. No, a US size 1, and I think that's a 2.2 millimeter needle. So that is kind of how I knit all my socks. Every once in a while, I won't ever try anything different. I was gonna say, I do have a pair of flexi flips that I think I'm going to pull out and try to use for some colorwork socks this year. But beyond that, I really don't use those small needles. I don't use 2 circulars. I've done 2 at a time. I'm not a fan. So yeah, that's pretty much the only way I ever do socks. Okay, my second almost finished object. It is completed, I'm not into finishing lately. I will just put that out there. I'm not sure why. I never used to have a problem with like weaving in ends and blocking. And so this just needs a couple of finishing touches and then this will be done. But you guys, I did it. I finished my Misurina and here she is. I am so happy with this. It turned out so good. Okay, so if you're new here, I started this last summer. Everything was going great. I got through the color work and then I realized, do you see it? Do you see it? If you don't, I'll show you. I have a pretty big mistake in the color work right here. I mean, if it was on the back, I would leave it because I have long hair and it's on the back, no big deal, but it is right on the front. So I am gonna duplicate stitch that. I also knew I didn't have a ton of yarn. So when I picked it up and worked on it again, I probably went to about here and then I bound off, I did some ribbing and bound off. And then I went and took my yarn and finished the sleeves. The sleeves are just a little bit shorter than the pattern, but not by a lot. And then I tried it on and I was like, oh no, that's not gonna work for me. It was very, very, very short. And I was like, I'm in my mid 40s. We don't show our belly button. And I'm not one of those people that wears dresses very often with sweaters over them. So I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So I did have some extra gray. The gray is Plucky Knitter and in the Town and Country colorway. I've shown it before. My lighting's not great in the basement, but it's like a army green gray is the best way to describe it. Like it's gray with like green hues. It's really pretty. So I undid my bind off and the ribbing, and I did a little bit more of this texture stitch until I knew that I was like at the end of one of the repeats, and then I switched to the contrast color to do the ribbing. Now, do I love the contrast color for the ribbing? No, but does it work? I think it does. I think it's all right. And it blocked out really, really well, and it fits really nicely. And once I fix that, once I use the leftover yarn and I duplicate stitch, then I'll wear it on here so you guys can all see it. But I really want to fix it before I do that. So I have a little work to do on it yet, but the knitting of the garment is finished and I am really, really pleased with it. So the contrast color is called Last Christmas by Stress Knits, and it's like a blush pink with a lot of different like Christmas lights in it. It's really pretty. So I'm just thrilled with it. If you've never seen the Misurina before, it's got some lace on top, and then between the color work is these cable panels, which were really fun to do. It's a really fun and engaging pattern. I could see myself knitting it again. I'm just so annoyed that I made that mistake in the color work. I almost frogged it because of that. And the color work on the back actually looks really good. And it looks sometimes like I made a mistake in the color work, like over here, but it's just the variation in the Last Christmas color. I never, ever, I mean, maybe in the past I did, but no longer. I don't ever catch my floats. So this is what it looks like on the inside, which is very pretty. So yeah, I don't catch floats. That's not for me. At the end of the day, knitting for me is supposed to be fun and joyful, and catching floats does not bring me joy. So yeah, so those are my two finished objects. I will try before I record next to do that duplicate stitching, see if it works, and wear it on here. If it doesn't work, which I don't see why it won't, it's gotta work. But if it doesn't work, I don't know what I'm gonna do. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, let's get to works in progress. I have some new cast-ons and I have some things that have been going for a long time that you've seen. So I'll start with one of my new cast-ons. This is a pair of socks for my neighbor. Her name is Addison. She is turning, I think, 13. We're very close friends with her family. Our kids are like staggered in age. So Claire's 15, Addie's 13, Milo's 12. So Addie and Milo are actually the closest in age. And then Camden is gonna be 11, I think. But Milo and Camden are very close friends, and Claire and Addie have always been very close friends. And we're very close friends with their parents, and they're our next door neighbors. So I had this yarn that I purchased on, I think, eBay last year from Legacy Fiber Arts. And the color is Miss Lily P. And it's funny because when this yarn was skeined up, it did not look this pink to me, which is just so interesting. Like felt like I was seeing more of the aqua and blues. And it's just interesting sometimes when like how yarn can look so different in a skein than it does in a cake or a ball or knit it up. So I cast on the Rhinebeck Roomies socks. This is a pattern by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. It's just a really fun textured pattern. I am past the heel. I am just doing a fish lips kiss heel for this one. This one is 64 stitches. These might be a little big for Addison. She's very, very tiny, but the last pair of socks I made from Milo, I used 64 stitches and it worked for him. And so I'm gonna have him try these on soon because they have pretty much the same size feet. They're both on the small end for their ages. So, so I'm gonna have Milo try this on, and that's kind of gonna be how I decide what length I'm gonna make for her. Addison, I made her a pair of socks, I think like a year and a half ago, and she wore them all the time. She may have worn them out, I'm not sure. She may still wear them, I'm not 100% sure, but I think she's gonna love these. The color, the texture, they're gonna be really great fall socks for her. So she has a birthday next month, so I would like to finish these in time for her birthday. And these are living in this bag. I'm sure I've shown it on here before, by Chestnut Fibers. I will link her Etsy shop below. And then we'll go to my shawls. Part of the reason I'm working on these shawls is I want to use this yarn up. I want it out of my stash, and it's also excellent yarn that I want to use up. And these are, at least one of these shawls I wanted to make for a long time. So the one project I worked on in the car on my way to Tennessee was the Hipster by Locatelli. I don't know why I couldn't remember the name of it. This is coming along really, really nicely. So here's where we're at. I mean, you'd think after 10 hours in the car I would be further, but I am not. We were caravanning, so there were stops, and yeah. So this is such a great pattern. It's a lot of garter, which I love. And then you have this like these crisscross and textured sections that are just really fun to work. It just adds like just enough interest. So I'm just about at a point where I'm going to start another one of these crisscross texture sections. And the reason I haven't started it is I just haven't had I feel like the crisscrosses are not hard. But now that I have more stitches on my needles, it's going to be a time commitment to get through those 2 rows. And I just want to make sure that I have the time to do it, because I don't want to have to put it down when I'm in the middle of doing it. It's just time consuming, not difficult at all. I did make one mistake on my very first crisscross. See, yeah, you can only see it on the right side too. So I mean, this one's just a little bit funky. Compared to the rest of them. But it's fine, it's not a big deal. The yarn I'm using is Leading Men Fiber Arts. They're both in the Monologue, which I think, I'll tell you again, it is Superwash Merino, Silk, and Yak. So this is super soft, kind of fuzzy yarn after you work with it, because it's fuzzy, it's soft, it's awesome. So the colors are, this one is Gothic Queen and this one is Bent Neck Lady. So you can see they're very complementary. And then holding them together, they look like this. So I'm really happy with it. I can't tell you anything about my stitch marker, no idea, or my progress keeper. It's a pastry, but that's not a part of my brain that works very well, is remembering those kind of details. I remembered off the top of my head that was Gothic Queen and Bent Neck Lady. I have endless capacity for remembering things like that, but where that stitch marker where that progress keeper came from, and what it was a part of a set, if I had to guess, I would think maybe a Harry Potter pastry, but I really just don't remember. Just not my strength. You know what else I'm really good at? I can remember every actor. I know every movie that they've been in. My husband and some of our friends call me like IMBD because I have really good recall for that. I'm really good with faces. I'm a visual learner, so maybe that's why. I don't know. Okay, and then I have the Hitchhiker. I have not put a lot more on this. This is using the same yarn in the color London Fog. This is just garter with some teeth. It is so enjoyable to work on, and I can't even describe to you all how fantastic this yarn is. It's like a cloud. It's so soft and just, if I didn't mention it before, both of these shawls are going to be for me because I want this luxury on my neck all the time. So yeah, so that's it. They're shearing this bag, which was a terrible idea because my yarn keeps getting tangled. But yes, they're sharing this bag, and that's okay. So this is in a bag by Awesome Granny. She always has a variety of sizes in her shop and really great patterns. I really like this one. Reminds me of fall, some foxes. The colors are what drew me to this one for sure. Okay, let's do something different. So the Bits and Bobs, it's a scrappy blanket by Kay Jones. This is what I've been working on the most for my Scraps Minis and More make along. And what I'm doing for mine is I am holding a strand of Knit Picks Stroll in the Dove Heather colorway along with my Scraps and Minis to make this blanket. I think I had 10 balls of the Dove Stroll, so math on the fly is not a strength of mine. So they're 50-gram balls, so yeah, however many grams that is. 500 grams. So it has 500 grams of the Knit Pick Stroll. And if my math is wrong, please don't judge me too harshly. And then I guess about that many grams of my Scraps and Minis in it, because I got to the end of 10 balls and I was like, that's it. So it's done. Now, well, it's not done. There's still a lot of work to do on it, but I'm going to show you. The last time I showed it on here, and I'm not speaking well about any of this, but the last time I showed you, I was here. So since then, I've added all of this. And I'm not real thrilled with how the very top ended up, but I'm not going to take it out because I really thought that the scraps that I pulled out were going to go further. Plus, I think I should have put one of these between the two speckled colorways because that kind of all bleeds together. But I'm also okay with it because it's a scrappy blanket. So I'm going to show it in its entirety as much as I can. So here's the top. So when I hold it at my feet, it comes up to about here. I think that's great. For what I want this for, I think that is wonderful. But it's going to be a little bit more than a lap blanket, a little less than like a full body blanket, but it's going to be super squishy and lovely. And I am just in love with it. So at this point, I have a lot of ends to weave in. And then after I weave in the ends, I am going to do an I-cord border around the entire thing, which is why I have not bound off, because I think that you bind off live to start the border, but I'm also not 100% sure. I could look at the instructions, but I haven't gotten there yet. I can't be bothered to do that. So I am going to make another one. Like as soon as this one is completely finished, I'm going to start another one. Things I'm going to do different though for the next one. Magic knot balls all day. I don't want to do all these ends again. And then the other thing I'm going to do different is I am going to cast on with a I-cord cast on, and I'm going to add stitches to each end to do a border as I go, and then I'm going to cast off in an I-cord bind off, just so that once all this work is done, it's going to feel, it's going to be another at least month of work for me to finish it. And I don't think that I love that. However, I might do it and be like, oh, no big deal, that wasn't hard. So I have a couple options for the border, for the I-cord bind off. I think I have some Knit Pick Swish in Dove Heather, which is a DK yarn. And instead of having to hold 2 yarns together, I think I might do that for the border. And then it might be a little less frustrating. Yeah. I think I'm gonna do that. And Knit Pick Swish is pretty affordable. So if I want that for another project, I mean, that's an easily replaceable yarn. And I think that will just be better than using two strands of the stroll all the way around. So I've talked about this a lot. The knitting part is done, which I am super thrilled about. And now it's getting into the finishing. And if you heard me earlier, finishing is not on the top of my list right now. So I think what I'm gonna do, how many times do I say that in all of my episodes? I think what I'm gonna do is one day when I bring out my DRK Everyday sweater and I bring out my Misurina, and maybe I think I also have a Stephen West shawl upstairs that I never woven the ends for. I think I'll have a weave-in day. I think I will maybe start in the morning. I'll take a mimosa and I'll do a weave-in day for the whole day. If I start with a mimosa and then move to gin and tonics by night, well, maybe that's not a great plan because then I could get sloppy. We'll see. But there has to be like a reward. I'll think about it. I need some reward-based approach. So if you have any ideas, let me know. I do like mimosas and gin and tonics, but I'm just wondering if that could end up backfiring and maybe I'll be asleep by 2. So, but yeah, I need a reward-based approach to finish some of this finishing work on my knits. So, but it's a substantial blanket. I'm super happy with it. I love it. And this has been so much fun to work on that I'm like, as soon as it's done, I'll be ready to cast on another one immediately because that's how much I've enjoyed working on it. Okay, and then I have one more work in progress. I started this last night, and so I don't have a lot to share about it yet. I have about 6 sweaters that I would like to start right now. So last night I started one of them. I started the Bibliophile 2 by Alicia Plummer. I also would like to make the first Bibliophile, which is a fingering weight sweater with a turtleneck. It's for sure on my list. This one just seemed a little bit more, I don't know, being DK weight, I thought it was a better one to start with, but I will go back and make the original one as well. The yarn that I'm using, I don't know how I settled on this. I bought it a couple months ago, but I am using Barocco Providence. It is a merino wool, 65% merino wool, 20% baby alpaca, and 15% silk. It was, if I'm remembering correctly, quite affordable. And the color that I'm using is called Atlantic, which is like a blue with all these fantastic tweedy bits that I am loving. And it's not very much. Here's the back. So I started it, and you kind of, the way this one starts is you, instead of doing short rows, you start like you're knitting flat and then you join in the round. So that's where I'm at. I just joined in the round. So we're very, very new on this. So that's the front. This yarn is really interesting. It's a kind of thick and thin yarn. Of course, now that I'm showing it, it's not having any, like it'll get real, real thin. And then sometimes when the tweedy bits come in, it can get really, really thick, which I don't always love. Like you can see, like there's a really thick part there. I don't always love that, but I also don't think it's ruining the texture at all. I think it's actually working up really nicely, and it's very soft. I'm loving soft yarns right now. So this is, I'm trying to use different types of yarns. I'm trying to think if I have demonstrated that today. I think a little bit. Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, so that Leading Fiber Arts yarn that had some different composition. This has different composition. I'm trying just not to use Wool of the Andes or Knit Picks all the time. So this is me using some of those different yarns. And also this is going to be really fun, I think, when I have a full sweater. So yeah, so I started that, and I guess I'm going to move into dream knitting now because I have some dream knits coming up quickly. One of them also goes into an acquisition that I'm going to share today, so I won't start with that one. But so the Bibliophile was a dream knit. I also really, a sweater that has been on my list for years is this portage sweater by Melissa. I cannot pronounce her last name. This is not a new design. It has been out for years. I have had yarn for making this sweater for wound up since before the pandemic. I go back and forth with this one. Like, part of me thinks, like, I can show you the yarn because I brought it today. Part of me thinks, just do it. You bought this yarn for that cardigan, cast it on. But then I think, I'm kind of yet to make a cardigan that works really well for me. So I think that's a fear I have, is that I'm going to make this and it's going to slip off my shoulders and not work really well. So of the cardigans that I've made, the Harvest has some trouble in the shoulders. The Comfort Fade cardigan, I don't like that one, but that may have been a me thing, but I didn't like the shawl collar. I should have made different choices on that one. So I just feel like my track record with cardigans is not great. But you guys, this yarn, so good. So this is DK yarn from Pineapple Yarns, and it is in a colorway. She's kind of known for like a lot of bright colors, but she dyed this several years ago and was doing sweater qualities of it. It's her Cook Pine color. So here's her tag. And I worked with her. Like, I sent her a message. I was like, I really want to make the portage sweater in this yarn. How much do I need? Would this yarn work for it? And she and I talked about it. I think her name's Martina. And like, and then I got the yarn, I wound it up, and I don't know, I've just second guessed it ever since. I've also thought about making the Halu by Caitlin Hunter with this as well, which I also think would be very pretty. That's a newer design of hers that's got like the lace and the baubles and kind of a V-neck, and I think that could be nice, but I have so much of this yarn that I kind of think I might just go for the portage. So I think I'm going to swatch. I know, crazy, but I think I'm going to swatch for it and see where I land and see how I think, because the back of this cardigan has like some honeycomb cables, I think. Let's see. I know there's a picture of it in here. And I'm trying very hard not to like show anything I shouldn't, but like, yeah. So it's got some honeycomb cabling. And if you notice on the front, like it's got these cool pockets. I'm just so unsure. So if any of you have made it, let me know. Or if you think, if you want to make the Halu, make the Halu. Like, let me know your opinions, because I'm really like still struggling with this, but it's time. It's time to use this yarn because I love it so much, and I've been holding on to it and hoarding it for so long. So it's time. So the yarn is going to be used. The sweater is to be determined. I also want to cast on the Big Rib by Jessie Made Designs that I started with some yarn that didn't really work out. I want to use that yarn in a Staycation Pullover by Tiff Nealon. I have all these sweaters that I want to cast on, like yesterday. So another sweater that I'm going to cast on is the Douglas Cardi by Andrea Mowry. I've wanted to make this since it came out. I always thought, like, I'll use scrap yarn. I'm sure I have plenty of yarn in my stash that would work for this, but what I want is this sweater. And I know that the Woolly Thistle has it. So I got it. It was my 20th anniversary gift to myself. And then because I thought, you know, since I was ordering yarn, I also got the 52 Weeks of Socks Volume 2 book. I needed it, even though I haven't made any socks out of 52 Weeks of Socks Volume 1 yet, but now I have 104 patterns of socks that I can make, so I think I'm just gonna do that. So yeah, I got the two, I'm all over the place right now, I apologize. So yeah, I got the two cool wool that Andrea used for her cardigan in the same colors to make the Douglas cardi. And honestly, this is what I want to make. So I will be casting this on soon. And I just got the kit off of the Woolly Thistle. I like this style of cardigan because it doesn't have a shawl collar and it has buttons, and I think I'm really gonna like it. Plus it looks like there's some ease. With all of Andrea Mowry's patterns, I'm just gonna have to be careful of the arms to make sure they don't get too tight. But yeah, I'm really excited to cast that on. So that is all like my dream knitting and all the stuff that's gonna be coming up. Again, if you have any thoughts about portage or halu or any other cardigan patterns that you think might be great for that yarn, let me know. It's like, I act like it's do or die, but it's not. Honestly, if I don't use that yarn for the portage, I can make the portage in some other yarn that I have in my house, because have we discussed this? I have a lot of yarn in my house. So I can make both, but I can't make both with the same yarn. So I think that's where the problem is this yarn is so special to me for some reason that I want to make sure that whatever I make, I love. So, all right, let's move on. If you are only here for the yarn, this is your sign to leave. Thank you so much. As always, I love hanging out with you and sharing with you. Please let me know what you're working on. Have you gotten any new yarn? Okay, so for book club, I finished a lot of really great books recently. The first book I finished since we last talked was The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I gave that 4 stars. It's a World War II concentration camp book. I thought it was really, really well written. It did the job of conveying the fear and the awfulness of concentration camps, but also the privilege that, I forget his name, the main character received from his position, without going into like the horror and the terrible and the visuals. Like, I've read a lot of war stories and a lot of true crime in general, and sometimes you read something and you can never unread those words. And I felt like this book did a great job of explaining, you know, the hardships of the horror without actually like showing you the horror. So it gave you the feeling without giving you the graphic detail. So I really enjoyed it. I also finished The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I gave that 5 stars. I really loved it. It's a good book. It just, well, everything that I heard people say about it was correct. So the beginning of it really reminded me a ton of Divergent by Veronica Roth, which that's a series I really adored. And then it does give you feelings of like Sarah J. Maas, also a little bit of Aragon, if you ever read the Aragon books, you know, so, and there's dragons. It's really good. I loved it a lot, and I give it 5 stars. And I think the sequel comes out this fall sometime. I'm thinking November, and so I already pre-ordered it. I really, really love this book. And then I read 20 Years Later by Charlie Donley. I gave that 3 stars. I was really looking forward to this book. I thought it was good, not great. Basically, the main plot is a woman is accused of murdering her lover, and then she is killed in the Twin Towers on 9/11. And then 20 years later, somebody, they match her DNA from the towers, and then a journalist goes to kind of look into the mystery because obviously the case was dropped. So was she guilty? It was good. I really disliked the twist at the end, but it was a worthwhile read, and I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Find Me by Anne Fraser. I really liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. She's the daughter of a serial killer who's kind of pulled back into her dad's serial killer past when he says that he will show them where the bodies are buried, but she has to be involved. And then there's a detective who thinks his mom might have been one of the victims, and so they're kind of working together. I really loved the two characters. I thought they were well executed characters. Like both of them were very, very likable, even though they were flawed. Really enjoyed the story. I thought it was excellent. Then I finished it and I was like, wait, there's another one? So then immediately I read Tell Me, also by Anne Fraser, and it's the same two characters and a different case. This one, I thought the writing wasn't as good. Still worth reading, but there were like a couple things that were like way too convenient that happened. It just wasn't as good as the first one, but I would read it again. So I gave that one 3 stars, but those were kind of like, I don't even know how these fell in my lap, where the first one came from, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I would recommend those for sure. I am still reading Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken before bed. I'm loving the book. I just can't stay awake at night lately. My schedule is really weird. I am falling asleep super early at night and waking up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Trying to make, part of me wants to change, like stay up later, but I don't want, like, my body is telling me I need to sleep. So now I'm just trying to maybe do something with my time in the morning instead of just laying in bed thinking like, why am I awake at 4:30 in the morning? Like, I think I'm going to start just waking up and doing something instead. But yeah, anyway, it's an enjoyable book. I really, really like it. Again, characters are great. The story is really good. A lot of action, fantasy based. It's good. I'm just having a hard time staying awake at night. And then right now on Audible, I am listening to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And you guys, it's so good. I came across this book because I was watching Instagram Reels, as you sometimes do. And somebody was putting like a list down of fantasy romance books they wish they could read again for the first time. And one of them was The Fourth Wing, which I had just finished. And then this book was on it, and then a bunch of other books I'd never heard of. So I was like, well, maybe I'll look into this one, this Divine Rivals, and see what I think, and then I'll see if I want to look into any of her other recommendations. And I do, because this book is so good. I'm really, really, really enjoying it. It is light on the fantasy, but there is a fantasy and kind of a magical quality to it, but it is amazing. So all I'm going to say is it's great. I have about an hour left in it, and I also realized now that there's going to be a second book, which I may or may not have pre-ordered already because I am ridiculous with my reading. I really need to use my library more, but I'm also somebody who rereads books fairly often. In fact, I wasn't even going to mention it, but I did reread also in the midst of all this Red, White, and Royal Blue. I saw that the movie came out on Amazon Prime this week, and I watched that, and I was like, that was a great book. I remember really liking it. And I looked back and I'm like, I did really like it. So then I listened to that again this week, and I read books a ton. So I don't feel guilty about purchasing books except when they're a flop. And we get some of those, but you don't always know. You don't always know you're not going to like something, right? But anyway, so that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad to be back on here. I hope to be back on here again soon, but if we've learned one thing this summer, it's that my follow through is terrible. So I will do my best to get back on here in the next few weeks. But as soon as I have enough to share, I definitely will. So hang in there, get through your summer. If it's summer where you are, enjoy it. I hope you do something fun. If you have kids going back to school, however your feelings are about that, just embrace them and know it's going to be okay. And yeah, I don't know why I turned into pep talk Dehnel here at the end, but yeah, everything is good. I love fall because it always feels like new beginnings, even though it's not. It's coming to be the end of the year, but I think because especially in the United States, we're very the beginning of the school year feels like a new beginning. I feel like I'm excited for some things coming up and yeah, some experiences we're going to have this year. So I hope you're excited too. Have a great time knitting until I see you next. This is a true Midwestern goodbye today, so I can't help it. I'll see you soon. Bye.